when you're watching A Bug's Life. Now, I have to say, like, this movie and along with another movie called Ants released similarly at the same time. Now, the whole backstory about like how these two movies came to be, essentially, I think Disney was working on A Bug's Life for Pixar, maybe, and then somebody else who was a part of that team or a part of Disney got fired, and he's got like a loss. He filed a lawsuit against Disney, and then Disney had to settle. They gave him like $300 million, and with that money, the guy created DreamWorks, the animation studio. And so he knew that they were making A Bug's Life, so he made a movie in direct contrast to it called Ants. Now, both of them are pretty good movies, I would say, but the one that stood out or was the quote unquote better film, in my opinion, was A Bug's Life. Now, that is due to any number of factors. I thought that Disney and Pixar were a lot more colorful, they were a lot more artistic. I thought that I thought that the comedy and the childlike aspect of the film was really good. I think it works. It's a good thing for kids to see. Ants was a bit more realistic. It was a bit more. It wasn't as colorful. It was pretty bland in the animation side of things. But again, that was DreamWorks' first, you know, movie. That was their first animated project. So of course it's going to be difficult for them to like stand out. Whereas Pixar, they had done like, and Disney themselves, they had already come out with Toy Story, so they had the animation technology already there. They probably had like, other Disney animators who had worked on like some of their past projects on the 2D side, like I don't know, like the Lion King and stuff like that. So they had like all kinds of people who are invested in Disney and Pixar, whereas DreamWorks was off the first, that was their first movie trying to compete with Disney. Now, it's of my opinion that Ants is the quote unquote more underrated film, or like not the mass, the larger consumption or like the larger success. It's not the quote unquote, it doesn't have the backing of Disney and all of their other past animation works. So that makes it kind of more like the underrated gem, more of like oh wow, this is really good movie, but it's not as highly rated as A Bug's Life. Now, with all of that being said, there's a contrast between the two, but I mostly want to focus on A Bug's Life and that story. So, A Bug's Life, I mean, you could kind of make similar comparisons between, you know, Ants and A Bug's Life, but I mostly want to focus on A Bug's Life because that's the one I watched. But both of them are good movies. I like them, but I like A Bug's Life a little bit more just because it's so colorful. It feels a lot more. I don't know. It feels a lot more childhood friendly. It's certainly the first one I watched as a kid. Um, and then Ants I found later on. You know what I mean? I was still a kid, but like I found it later on, and I thought it was good, but it wasn't better than A Bug's Life. Anyways, A Bug's Life follows Flick, who's, I mean, he's just such a sweet, lovable guy. He's a kind of intellectual outcast. He doesn't really fit in with everybody else, and I think that's kind of a good, it gets the audience on his side. Anyways, essentially, the ant colony as a whole, they are being protected or kind of ruled over by grasshoppers. And the grasshoppers are the quote unquote muscle. They're the strong ones that like fight for and protect the ants, and in return the ants have to give them food. They have to provide for them. They have to give them everything, well not everything, but they have to not only provide for themselves as an ant colony, but they have to provide for the grasshoppers. So it's like double the work just to give it up to, the grasshoppers. Anyways, the grasshoppers are the bad guys and the ants are the regular people. So, essentially at the beginning of the film, we understand what the rules are. The ants give the grasshoppers food so that they don't kill and destroy the ant colony, and they get some sort of like, I think they get some sort of protection You know what I mean? Like the grasshoppers will fight off like other things. Not that it happens, but if it does, they'll fight it off or whatever. But essentially, Flick, using one of his inventions, gets rid of the food or like the offering, the rations that the grasshoppers are supposed to eat. So the idea is that the grasshoppers come, they eat, they leave. You know what I mean? They don't have to have any interaction. They don't have to like talk to one another. That's the status quo, is that like we give them all of this food, they come over to the colony, they eat the food, and then they leave. That's simple as it is. Flick ruined that by, you know, all of the rations fell into the river or into the water, and it was unedible, and it just went away. So the grasshoppers have no food, so they come into the ant colony and they basically tell everybody that like, hey, where's the food? We need to eat, you know? You're worrying about, you know, you're supposed to feed us and we're supposed to protect you and blah 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 blah. And the princess and the queen at the time uh are kind of like put under a lot of pressure because obviously it failed. They didn't feed the grasshoppers, and now the grasshoppers are like, now you have to refeed us and give us food again. And then the ants are like, well, the season's almost over. We're not going to be able to gather that much food unless we give you what we have, and we won't be able to survive if we give you everything that we have. And the grasshoppers are kind of like, we don't care. You have to do it. Blah 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 blah. So Flick, and the genius idea for messing it all up, he says, you know what? We're done taking it from the grasshoppers. We're done taking it up the ass from the grasshoppers. You know what we're going to do? I'm going to go out into the city, into the bug city, and I'm going to find warrior bugs. Warrior bugs that will come back to the ant colony, fight the grasshoppers, and then we don't have to collect food for them. And the princess is kind of like, that's a great idea. Obviously being like a bit sarcastic because she just wants him out of the colony so that all the ants can work without any of his distractions or his inventions or any way for him to screw it up again. So Flick is like, feels like he's doing a big duty to the colony by getting the warrior bugs, whereas nobody really expects him to return. And then at the same time, they can focus on their goal of like, obviously the princess can lead. The princess can lead the colony and she can protect everybody and just keep to the status quo. Keep things the way they are and help everybody out. So Flick goes off on his adventure. He's going off solo dolo. There's some really cool ideas about how he travels, which is using like one of those oh my goodness, what are they called? Those things that you blow and they oh my gosh, what is that called? I can't even Google it because I forgot what it's called. It's not a daisy. No, it's not a daisy. It's not flower. It's one of those like they look like cotton, but it's just what's it called? I almost said a cotton swab. No, it's like a ball of cotton at the top, but you blow on it and it can like, you know what I mean? He gets one of those and he like flies over like a, you know, like a canyon, but it's actually like just a little bit of dirt or whatever. He flies over it to get to the other side. Cool stuff like that. Those are kind of the ingenious like travel mechanics or the way that they make it seem, which I like. I think that's really cool. So anyways, Flick goes over to the Bug City or whatever, and well, he finds what he believes to be warrior bugs, but they're actually circus bugs. They pretend to be warriors to fight off some flies when actually they're failed traveling circus bugs. So they have like a bunch of good bits in there where it's like the ladybug is actually a guy, which is like really funny. He's like this tough guy, but he's not a tough guy. He's actually a pretty big sweetheart. You have the stick bug, whose like main attribute is that he's a stick, but he doesn't like being a stick. He's like, I want to be something other than the stick. I want to be like a bowling ball. You know what I mean? You have like the fat caterpillar who eats too much, but is like, it's really funny. You have like that praying mantis who's like, what's it called? A mentalist or whatever. Like he does like mind stuff and stuff like that. I think that's kind of funny. there's also a spider and like a big beetle. They all like they appear as warrior bugs, but they're circus bugs, failed circus bugs, traveling circus bugs, and they're looking for a change of pace. They want honor, they want glory. And so Flick, seeing them in their fake pretendness, he believes that they are actually legit warrior bugs. So he recruits them. He's like, guys, come over to my ant colony and help us fight the grasshoppers. And so they hear him say that and they interpret it as a show. They're like, "Oh my gosh, we're gonna put on a show. That's crazy." They're loving it. They're just like, "That's a great idea. Let's go over there. Screw because they're working with like some sort of flea who's kind of like the overruling boss of the circus." So they basically leave with Flick and they go back to his ant colony and they show back up at the colony and everybody's like, what? He came back with warrior bugs, and they're all like showing off. The circus bugs are pretending, and they're just like, oh yeah, look at us, we're so strong. Da, 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 da. You know what I mean? And so as they return and Flick is like schmoozing it up with the princess and everybody's kind of like having a good time and the ants are expecting them to essentially the ants are expecting them to kill the grasshoppers and the circus bugs are kind of like what are we talking about here? Like we were supposed to put on a performance. And so there's also the roly polies. Those ones are funny. So anyways, Flick is like, you guys are supposed to fight the grasshoppers, but they're not. And then he finds out they're circus bugs, and the circus bugs reveal themselves, and he's just like, oh my gosh, I ruined everything. And so he's like, all right, I got to figure out a way to salvage this warrior stuff. So they start building. I don't remember if I think it was they start building the bird, or was it he finds out and he starts coming up with backup plans like building the bird and like, you know what I mean? I don't remember the exact specifics of it, but anyways, they build like this fake bird to scare off the grasshoppers, like part of a larger plan. You know what I'm saying? And then obviously Flick's, lies come back to haunt him, and everybody finds out that they're circus bugs. And everybody starts panicking. Oh, I remember. The flea arrives and tells everybody that they're circus bugs, not warrior bugs. And so at that time, the circus bugs are like, all right, we're leaving. And then Flick is kind of like forced to leave himself. He's like, I've ruined the ant colony now. Nobody likes me. And so then I think the little sister of the princess, who's soon to become the next queen or whatever, after her sister or whatever, she's kind of like, we can still save everybody. We can still protect and help everybody out. We still have the bird. We still have this. We still have that or whatnot. And so Flick and the rest of the circus bugs find the courage inside of themselves to go back to the ant colony and help fight the grasshoppers. So then the grasshoppers show up. Flick and the circus bugs intercept. They fight. They unleash the bird with the grasshoppers scared and whatnot. Everybody's terrified. They're fighting. And then that little flea burns the bird, exposing the plan, the ruse. And then the grasshoppers are kind of like, darn you, ants, darn you. And then earlier in the story, I probably skipped over this part, was that the grasshoppers are like, the ants, screw the ants. The ants are weak, they're puny, bop, 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 bop. And Grasshopper, well, the main guy, Hopper, is like, oh, yeah, what about this one, thing? Let me throw this at you. And the guy's like, that was nothing. He's like, oh, yeah? What about this one? And he's like, you kidding? You know what I mean? That was nothing, you know what I mean? Well, how about this? And he just, like, unleashes a whole bunch of, like, peanuts on them. And he's like, those ants outnumber us 1,000 to 1. And if they start realizing that they outnumber us, we lose our way of life. You know what I mean? So he's basically saying that they have strength in numbers as a collective. They're strong to defeat them as a whole, but in small numbers, the grasshoppers reign supreme. Now, because of that, the grasshoppers need to keep the ants in line. They need to keep them living in the same fear. They need to keep them living in the same routine, and they have to keep them fit into the same status quo. And because of all of that, in the end, when their ruse is exposed and Flick is at the end of his rope, he's getting beaten up. Flick in that moment is kind of like, Hopper, you don't pick any food for yourselves and for the colony. We do everything for you. We even provide for ourselves. We're strong enough to help this colony and to feed all of you grasshoppers. So it's not us who need you, it's you who need us. And so, with all of that, all of the ants rally together and realize their strength. And they start fighting. And they start fighting and fighting and fighting. And before long, Hopper gets taken by a real bird. And with that real bird, we see a pretty gruesome death, if we're being completely honest here. But, it needed to happen. Circle of life, that kind of stuff. But anyways, Flick, the princess, everybody is saved. The circus bugs are heroes. Everybody lives a good and charmed life. And the ant colony goes back to normal. We see that everybody's going to have a good life. The end. Da 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 da. So, this movie, it's very colorful. It's fun. It has a good message behind it, I think. It's very important for today's time. But I remember when I first watched it, it was just kind of like this feeling of like, even though Flick messed up a lot of times, he could still redeem himself. He could still come back and do things right and help people, help his own people, help the colony, and stand up for them. You know, I don't think that the ant, obviously the ant colony wouldn't be as strong as they are, or wouldn't be as good or be able to stand up for themselves if somebody didn't stand up for them. If somebody didn't actively participate in stopping their oppression, stopping the grasshoppers, you know? And Flick took a lot of action. Though he did it alone, he still took action. He went out to, he found ways to like invent ideas or make inventions to help the ants gather food and pick, seeds and whatnot to feed to the grasshoppers and for themselves, He was always innovating for the colony. He was always there for the colony, for his fellow ants. He went out to go get the circus bugs or the warrior bugs on his own. He journeyed by himself. He came back. He came up with the ideas for the bird. He came up with all of these little different things. And obviously he lied. That's wrong. But he did it for the colony. And that's the part that is important, is that he may have failed and he may have lied to get some sort of attention, some sort of like praise and love, which is something that I think we can all relate to, is that like, what's a little bitty lie about, you know what I mean? So what if there's circus bugs and not warrior bugs? You know what I mean? Semantics, you know what I mean? Some might call them circus bugs. I call them warrior bugs, you know what I mean? It's all about perspective, you know what I mean? But anyways, I think it was really funny the way that they, the way that they made it happen and the way that it all turned out okay in the end, But overall, I think that this movie is it's a real story about like perseverance, and it's a story about like standing up for yourself. It's just like doing the best you can for the people around you, Flick wasn't always good at what he did, you know what I mean? His inventions failed, he sucked. He time and time again was just not all that helpful to the overall colony. But he's one ant trying to make bigger differences. So even though he wasn't actively participating or, gathering food or whatnot, he was indeed trying to help. Now, did he fail? Absolutely. But he kept on trying and trying and trying and trying. And when he finally got a taste of success by bringing back the warrior bugs, who wouldn't be, addicted to it or like it? He was like, finally, some praise, some recognition, some actual, like, gratitude and feelings of accomplishment. And then when it all went down, it was like, I gotta leave. I gotta let them do what they do. I don't belong here anymore. But that was wrong. He indeed did belong there. And it's because he came back. It's because he had lost everything. He had lost all of the ant colony's respect. He lost all of their... Basically, he was disowned by the entire colony, that he was able to stand there and be like, and take it all. Hey, I see these ants do great things, and you don't. All you guys do is take from us, and we're stronger than you say we are. And you know that. You know we are. And that's just the great part of it all. That's just the true genius of this movie, is realizing that in that moment, they recognize their worth. Their value is greater than the smaller value of any one grasshopper. One grasshopper is not above thousands of ants, because they all work together. So, in conclusion, when you're watching A Bug's Life, think of yourselves as a collective ant. Think of yourself as the ant colony. You are a mass total of thousands of ants. Just you, right? Now see it from the ant colony's perspective. There is a status quo, that this is just the way things are. You didn't come up with it. It wasn't your idea to come up with this. This was generations of it in the process. You are a part of a larger machine that has been running for years and years and years. Okay? That's where we're at. This is a system that has been designed over and over again. Then there's this guy who time and time again fails the colony, doesn't help you, is constantly like tinkering with some machines or some mechanics, and is like, no, just come in here and help us. Like, you benefit all of us just by joining the system. Why are you trying to create shortcuts? Just come in here, do honest, good work, find food for the grasshoppers, and then we'll pick food for ourselves, and we all live happily ever after. Like, that's the way things are. We'll pick for them, we'll pick for us. End of story. We're good. We're happy. Life's okay. But then, that same ant ruins things. He ruins the system. He destroys all of their food, all of your hard work, and then he's like, well, I'll do my best to, like, stop these grasshoppers from ruining our way of life. And you have to think to yourself, like, you're just going to ruin the system even more. But if we can kick you out of the colony, then we can actually do things without you, which we've been doing anyways. So, yeah, leave, go ahead, do whatever you want to do. And then he comes back with a promise, with some fruit. He comes back with the warrior bugs, and it's like, oh, wait, there's actually a solution. There's actually, like, a way to fight these grasshoppers. Maybe we can challenge the system. Maybe we can actually, like, defeat it, And then that turns out to be a big lie. They're not warrior bugs, they're circus bugs. He lied to all of us. Now we have to scramble and work even harder now, faster, because we wasted all of our time believing that they were going to fight them off. We can't beat the system. Now we have to, like, scramble to make enough food for everybody. And then it all comes crashing down. The grasshoppers, the system itself starts crumbling on them. They're feeling the negative effects of it. They didn't uphold the status quo. They didn't stick to the system. Now they're being punished. But then that same ant stands up and reminds everybody that we don't need to do this for them. We're stronger than all of them. We pick for us and for them. We don't need them. You guys see it. Believe it. And then they do. And then they all gang up and they fight. They win. Blah, 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 blah. And then also see yourself in the grasshoppers' position. Because the grasshoppers, I mean, I'm pretty sure they have some survival skills, you know? But why do they feel this inherent need to take when they could provide for themselves? Because it's easier. Because it's the way things are. Because they think themselves better. So, when you put yourself in both of those positions, when you watch the movie, maybe you can get some sort of perspective, maybe some sort of understanding and some realizations about yourself. I never want to become like one of those grasshoppers. I never want to be like them and take from other people. But then again, is I want to be wealthy. I want to be rich. I want to have good things. And getting those good things sometimes means having to take things from other people. You don't become a billionaire by not taking from people beneath you or people like working class people, right? So I when you think about it like that, is that am I a grasshopper or am I going to be a part of the colony? And that's just kind of the perspective you can gain. That's just sort of the little details that we can all think about. So when you watch it, see it from those two perspectives. You can root for the ant colony or root for the grasshoppers. See it from both of their sides and understand there's two very different ideas here at play, but understanding both of them will help you better understand oh, I feel this way about this. I feel this way about the system. I feel this way about the colony. I feel this way about the grasshoppers. I feel, stuff like that. You'll come to understand your own feelings better. And when we do that, we're able to become better versions of ourselves. We're able to find out what makes us tick, what our values are, and how we can be better. Always how we can be better. And yeah, I think that's interesting. So, great movie, A Bug's Life. I like A Bug's Life more than Ants, but Ants is also a good movie. Maybe I'll talk about that another time. Maybe I'll talk about some DreamWorks movies, but overall, I like A Bug's Life more. I think it's more colorful. I like the story is a bit more... I mean, you could argue that it's a little bit more simplistic, but it's more so it's more colorful, it's more kid-friendly. It introduces these themes and ideas more like candy, whereas Ants is a bit more I mean, it kind of offers the same idea, but it's not as sugary, if to put it in another word. Bug's Life is sugary, whereas Ants is a bit more there's sweetness to it, but it's not... It's a little bit more natural. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. It's a bit more... how can I put it? Ants is lemon juice, and A Bug's Life is lemonade. Does that make sense? Is that you get lemon juice with ants, which is I mean, I don't know a whole lot of people that would drink that, but you can. And then there's lemonade, which is sugary. It's delicious, mixed with a little bit of lemon, right? There's artificial sugar in there, It's just a little sweeter, if that makes sense. But, we'll see how it goes. But anyways, that's it. A Bug's Life, great movie. Go watch it. A good family-friendly movie for the whole family, And I think everybody will kind of I think that's a pretty good way of discussing, classism with your children. If an adult is listening to this. But anyways, thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you guys all next time. Thank you.